Hello everyone, welcome. In the next clip of video clip about drawing human proportions from the series of how to draw what you see. And today I will talk to you a little bit about the proportions of history of the human proportions. And before we start drawing, I will just give you a small historic review. And so the first were actually Greek Egyptian sculptors who divided the human corpse by the squares. They established that approximately 3 squares and half is the human feet. Okay, so basically if you draw the feet, it's like this, is the human feet, okay, over here, there. So they established that it takes approximately 3.5 squares, the human feet. That's why, if you remember the video clip about the portraits proportions, I was explaining you the oval which you do like after, which we refer to the proportions, is from 3.5 squares. So that's the thing. And after, of course, in the 5th century, Greek sculptor Polykrit established proportions of 7.5 heads, the human proportions. But these proportions were, if you look at Polykrit's sculptures, they're very muscular, very tough, because most of the time he was sculpting really the Olympic competitors and very muscular men and soldiers and etc. But 100 years after, around 4th century BC, Lysippos established 8 heads human corpse proportions, and these proportions most academias and art schools are still using today. So let's go. Of course, there were, after in the Renaissance, there were different proportions. In the Middle Age, there were actually almost 10 heads, but there was another realistic proportions, and in Renaissance were approximately 8, sometimes 9 and 10 as well. It depends on the artist. In the period of Manierism, there were definitely around 10 heads proportions, and the necks were long and everything was quite particular. But those are not realistic proportions, because the only reason they did this proportions to get a much more gracious look of human body. But we're going to stick only with the 8 heads of human proportions canon, which is actually created by Lysippos, Greek sculptor from 4th century BC. So let's go. So as I said, according to Lysippos, you have head, you have the oval. As you remember, I explained you the form of the oval as I explained in you for the portraits form. So you have one head here. So we're going to get vertical line, and we're going to do 8 heads. 1, so it's 1, 2, you have 3, 4. Approximately here is half of the body. What I mean by it, that the crotch area, okay, the genital area, here between the legs point, is approximately 4 heads. So now, once we have this, you go another 4 heads, okay, and you have the base when the feet stands. So basically 1, 2 heads here, you have approximately the position of the knees. So what I mean by this is, well, approximately knees are here. So approximately, now I have to mention here that this is men and women proportions as slightly different. I will explain the difference, but for now we're talking about men proportions. So as you see, is approximately, we're talking about men, so approximately on the second head level, less or more, is the torso area, okay? So of course the necks go like inside, okay? This is the torso area, less or more here. Here approximately is the nombro. So when you go with this, you have the nombro, okay, part, and you have this, and you have this part. So basically here start the hips, okay? So if we're talking about men, we have approximately this kind of, proportions. And one thing to remember about man proportion is, you see this place here, okay? If you align straight line down, okay? If we go with straight line down, they actually, this line here aligns with the hips. What's going to be different in the latest proportions? But now one thing to remember is very important, is that the width, the farther you can go with the human body, is 3 heads. So 1, 2, 3. So what it means, this line indicates you that the arm, the farther you can go with the arm, is approximately here. Now, why? Of course, they might be different, you know, they might be different when you have some muscular man, you know, training a lot. So sometimes this is even bigger, the head is smaller, you know, but we're talking about human proportions, like classical ones, like David, Michelangelo. So that's what we're taking care of, you know, here. So I explain you the classical realistic proportions. So now, how about the hands? The hands, approximately, the end of the hands are approximately here. What it means that approximately here, the fingers go approximately to the 5th head level. And of course, after the hand go and, you know, the elbow go approximately, you know, where is the nombril area, sometimes less or more. It depends the person, but there's slight differences, but approximately you're going to be okay with this, you know, like this. So that's how the human proportion works. So let's go the other side, less or more, okay? And remember one thing, whenever you draw the human body, okay, you always first plan with the very light, this should be very light sketch on your paper before you start drawing really model. Let's assume that this is model posing for us, okay? So that is how it, you know, you should first plan. Asur was the same with the portraits. You know, first you plan the sketch, because then you're going to correct everything. That's why it has to be the line. What I'm doing in red has to be very lightly drawn with the pencil or any other medium you're using. So basically, we have another hand somewhere here, there, okay, whatever. So now, of course, the face, I don't talk about this because you remember the portraits there, the division of this and everything. It's just the proportions to get you, you know, through it. So this kind of planification you should do as long as you will see that you're still not, you know, comfortable with all the proportions of the human body. And once you have this, of course, you can go and look much more exactly, you know, the shapes, whatever, the muscles, whatever is, you know, there you were looking for, the form of the hand, whatever. Everything you can actually, you know, start doing here. So maybe the torso is rather like this a little bit, you know, here, there. You know, there's some bones, the neck always goes inside the body. You see here you can actually look for the much more exact, you know, depiction of everything, the knees and, you know, let's say this man, you have the genital area here, you have, you know, the nombrils and everything, then we have this, you know, muscles here coming like this, like this, like this, approximately, okay? So that's how you do. Now, before you get, this is the human proportion, but I would like to now explain you very fast how you should train yourself, because working on the proportions of the human body. As you know, the best way to do is always start with the head. Okay, so what it means? Always start with the head, and first of all, you have to always look what kind of angle the head takes. In this case, we have straight, but that might be head, which model can have this kind of head. So you have this angle. And the next thing you have to look for is the spinal cord, how the model is posing for you. Okay, so if the arms, angle of the arms and angle of the hips, okay? So basically you use very simple forms. I would suggest to use very simple forms, not very elaborated forms. Just simple, so kind of rectangle, kind of, you know, squarey, kind of rectangular form here. And then you align also, you look always vertical line where it aligns with here, okay? So, and of course, let's say the model is posing for us in the one leg. So when I have this half body, I take here, I have approximately the line, the base is here. So basically I look at the angle of the leg, okay? So basically I know that in half of this space you have the knees. So I have, for example, very simple, line of, there's another leg, maybe that way, from the profile a bit. So basically, you should train yourself first before you're going to work the shapes out more exactly. You should train yourself with the proportion by very simple shapes. For example, the hand is always coming from there. Okay, so you look where is the elbow, which line it takes, how the hand is, here, maybe is going a little bit, up there, like most models, a very classical position and everything. So you should always, before you get really to look for the nice shapes, you have to train yourself with this very simple, forms of. Once you get the proportions right, after everything is easy because now I can go and look for the form of the head. I see the neck is coming here, for example. So I know now the muscles go somewhere here like this. Okay, like this. So now I can shape my body. Okay, so how it goes, the hips are there. So everything I can actually go and search now through this, the hips, how they go up there. Now the leg itself, how it goes, how it's composed, and everything over here, this kind of, for example, foot and everything, what kind of, form it takes. So this you work after, but first very simple forms in order to practice the proportions right. And just very short introduction to the women. What is the difference between women proportions and men proportions? And I'm going to draw you here. So basically we start also with 8 heads. So we have straight line and I go 2, 3, 4. And then I take this, because it's the same, so I have this line here. I know that the middle between this line and the base, in the middle, the knees. Okay, here approximately somewhere. So, if we go to the ladies' proportions, that's different a little bit. You have the between legs area here, okay? So, now, the next is coming here. Of course, it's the same principle, 3 heads. The width of the body, the arms, between the arms line, 3 heads on the width, and then we go, to other things. As you remember, in the men proportions, this line was aligned, with the hips. In the ladies proportion, is that the arms line here, let me draw first the ladies a little more, okay? The breast area, of course, it depends the volume of the breast, but the volume of the breast, of course, is sometimes is in, is not like in the man and the second head, but is rather 2.5 heads, less or more. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's slightly higher. That's the difference. And then we go, of course, with the forms. The hips are much more, extended here, much more solid. So you see, when you have the hand now, okay, drawn approximately here, you have this, you have the hand here, and the 5th head, you have the end of the hand. So when I am here, you see one thing that, look, this line, the arm, the exterior part of the arm, aligns actually with the hip here, okay? So just a second, let me just very fast finish this part approximately like this, okay, like this, okay, with the hand there, okay. So now I take the black line and look. So we said this is ladies, so let's say it's kind of hair here, okay. And then we go here, there, okay. So as you see, it comes rather, that way, okay. And here you have this, the nombril is somewhere here. It's not exactly as in the man, it's a little bit kind of it depends the ladies, because this part sometimes the number is higher, lower than the third head. So it all depends, but normally it's rather higher. And then you have the between leg area, and then you will go with the torso. So you have one, and then the hips. So this part of the hips, most of the time, okay, this line aligns vertically. If you take the arm aligns with the edge of the hip. So that's the principal difference between the proportions, okay? Because all the rest stay less or more the same. So the breast area and the hips and the arms, okay? And of course you have to train yourself the same way as here. First, very simple forms, once you get the proportions right. Once you have the proportion right, you go further. You can start searching a little bit more exact forms of the body, and once you have the plan of the basic forms, then the third is to really try to get it much more exactly, and the shadowing and everything. There's a lot of things to teach you, but let's start just with the proportion first, because this is the most complicated. And my philosophy of teaching drawing is that once you learn relatively well to draw human body, there is no other things you can draw after. This is the most complicated, drawing exercise, the human corpse. That would be all. It's just one thing for at the end. I would like to just tell you that there is difference between when you draw the child. The proportions are different, because small child, you have approximately 5 heads proportion. A little bit older, like teenager, you have like older child around 10, whatever, is the 6 heads proportion. And when you go like to the teenager, it's like 7, and it goes until the adult age. So it's not, this proportion doesn't apply to children, it's just to the grown-ups, okay? For the children and everything, there's another story, there's another set of proportions to deal with. So good luck, and see you next time. Thank you very much.